Hey there guys, and welcome to a very wet and dreary Sunday afternoon here in Tasmania. I'm on the north coast of Tasmania, just at the Mersey Bluff here in Devonport, and I'm just trying to get some really moody photos of this lighthouse here. As you can see, I've got some crazy storm clouds over in the background. I've got this really gnarly old tree in the foreground there, and I'm also looking at this very well positioned lighthouse. I've been down to this spot many times over the years, and the reason I come here is it's only a 5-minute drive from home, but that really is a great place just to get out and have a look. What I'm going to do for the rest of this episode as well is continue this little photo shoot here at the Mersey Bluff, but I'm also just going to walk around different parts of the foreshore over the next week or two, just checking out the different moods that this weather can bring us this time of year, being autumn, which is fantastic light at the moment, and just try and capture some local scenes and give you guys an opportunity to see what's available on a local level around here without travelling too far into the wilderness. So stay tuned. I've just fired a few sequences off here at the Mersey Bluff, and these conditions are quite testing. I'm hidden underneath my handy umbrella here, but I'm also getting taken by the wind a bit as well, and that rain's coming in from all sorts of different directions, so I'm getting wet is what I'm trying to say. I have taken one composition, and I've shot this at a 15th of a second at f/16. I have put a circular polarizer on, and I'm absolutely getting hammered here, just to try and capture this. Not that I need the circular polarizer to cut through the glare. Today, obviously, it's coming in from all directions, this weather, so that's not really an issue, but I just wanted to cut my exposure down by about half a second, just to add a little bit more depth to these clouds. And I really think I'm going to have to wait this out for a few minutes. I can't get this umbrella up enough to try and reveal that lighthouse at the moment without the camera getting soaked, so I'm just going to play a waiting game. So it is well and truly pouring down here now, and any hope of getting another break in those clouds is not very likely. Hey there, and welcome to day 2 of keeping it local. What I'm doing at the moment is just targeting this section of coast while the rain has stopped. I tried to get out earlier, but like yesterday, it was just a fool's errand of sort, and I was getting absolutely nowhere. So I've come back out late in the evening here, and what I have got is some really nice contrasty rocks here. The sun has started to come out, so I'd say if I'm going to get an exposure here looking out due west towards Don Heads here, I better hurry up and set up before I miss the light altogether. It's just a matter of trying to position these rocks on the foreshore there without intruding on the background of Don Heads itself. So, and try not to get hit by an oncoming wave is also a bit of a challenge. I'm just going to come back and retreat a little bit, and I might give myself a little bit of elevation here as well. What I really like about these two rocks just jutting out to sea there is the way that they are fractured apart, and I'm going to try and give this a fairly good crack around about here. So let's have a look and set up. Just while setting up and getting wet feet here, I put my 85mm prime lens on, and what I have noticed in the time it took me to set up is just how amazing and contrasted the view out towards Don Heads is on its own. So I've just cast my attention away from those rocks there for the time being, and I'm just focusing on the larger landscape through there. I do need the 85mm on. A 35mm doesn't have the throw to get all the way down to that background over there nicely. I have put a circular polarizer on, and I've also put a 6-stop ND grad on as well. And the reason for that is primarily just to slow down these waves a little bit. I couldn't get the camera down far enough in shutter speed with such a contrasty sun at the moment. And just while that is doing that amazing thing with the sun at the moment, I'm just going to fire another picture off. And what I'm doing is setting the ISO right down to ISO low on the Nikon here. I just found with the camera down at ISO 64, I really can't smooth this water off enough just yet. So I've just fired another image off there, and I'm really happy with that foreground now. What I have got is some nice time exposure through those rocks there, and I've got an amazing burst of light right out to sea there, which is going to add some lovely separation between the ocean and the background there. I have just finished shooting west towards the Don Heads there, and I've swung my camera around facing due north just to focus on those rocks that I primarily came down here to shoot at. I put the 85mm lens on to really try and isolate those rocks, and I've got a nice little lead-in foreground. And what I really do like is the way that these clouds angle down into the crux of those rocks, which took a bit of waiting, just waiting for that cloud to drift over there. They've been pretty slow moving here, but it's really worth the effort. I've also been waiting for a crash of wave on those rocks as well, and once again I have put a circular polarizer on and a 6-stop ND filter on. The polarizer really is helping with the contrast, and the 6-stop is to help get this down in shutter range to around about half a second to a second. The camera on its own won't go down that far with such a contrasty light. I have taken a couple of exposures, and I'm really stoked with how these clouds really do drive down into the opening in those rocks. Welcome to my next photo shoot for Staying Local here on the north coast of Tasmania in Devonport, and it's mid-afternoon and I'm looking for some compositions that I normally wouldn't look for. What I'm doing today is I'm looking for some high contrast compositions, which is something I don't usually do. Usually as a photographer I set up, wait till late afternoon into the evening or early morning, of course, to try and capture that golden light. But I'm just going to try and do something a bit different, and instead of waiting for that golden light or waiting for that dark cloud to cover the sun and diffuse it, I'm just going to try a few different techniques where I use the sun and that deep contrast to capture something quite unique. I'll just explain what I've done. and what I'm doing at the moment. I have set the camera up on the tripod, and I've got my big heavy duty tripod today. I don't need to travel light being so close to home. But what I have done is I've chosen to put on the 85mm prime lens, and I've also put on a circular polarizer to help with some of that glare. I want this to have a bit of glare and separation between the lights and the darks in this image. That's my intention today. But what I don't want to do is turn this surf into a complete blowout with white across the surface and lose all that definition. So I have used that circular polarizer for that. I have also put on a 6-stop neutral density filter just to put a little bit of delayed shutter across the water, just to give it a little bit more atmosphere. I find that a shutter speed up to about half a second to a second is ample on a scene like this. I find when the surf's rolling in really hard like this, in a scene like this, if the shutter speed is too long, up around the 15 seconds to 30 seconds, then that whitewash becomes a big whitewash in itself and covers the entire scene. So there's actually no separation between the darker coloured water and the breaking water. So something to be a little bit mindful of there as well. What I have done is taken one image and I've shot this at 2 seconds, which looks amazing at the moment. I have got a fairly blown out sky, so what I might do is actually cut my exposure back to 1 second. And it's very important on contrasty days like this to shield the front of the camera, or else I'll end up with a lot of lens flare, which will render my pictures no good in this instant. And what I have taken advantage of is this really moody sky in the background. What I have done is I've tried to isolate the lighthouse there with this 85mm lens and the headland, of course, and I'm trying to keep out of it. And something most photographers don't like doing, which I've done before, is I've actually left my camera set up in the wind and it's taken a dive. I've smashed a beautiful $300 polarizer made by Schneider here, which is quite disappointing. I'm not sure if my camera still works. I'm about to give it a go. And I'm still getting some images, which is amazing. And it's displaying error, which is even more bothering. And I'm going to have to take a look at this and see what's wrong with this camera. It might be the lens, it might be the body itself, but I think this has ended in tears, this shoot. So stay tuned and let's see what happens later with this camera assessment. Seriously can't believe how angry I make myself sometimes. I really should have put some weight on the bottom of that tripod in this blustering conditions here, and I'm quite amazed that this 85mm lens and this D810 body are working just fine. Well, that's probably not the best way to end a photography outing, by smashing some of my kit up, which makes me put a question out there to other photographers: how much gear have you lost or smashed out in the field? Funnily enough, I'm actually up to my third camera, believe it or not, over the last 15 years. That's the amount of cameras I've been through mishap, so accidents do happen. What I am grateful for though, and if you can be grateful for smashing gear or losing gear is that I am so close to home. I remember maybe 10 years ago I was in Iceland and I stuck part of my camera gear on the roof of a rental car, and as I sat it on the roof of the rental car I told myself, don't sit that on the roof of the rental car because you'll forget it's there. And yep, I guess it's called a bit of human instinct or human error on my behalf, definitely, but I did leave it there and I drove off, and I can remember hearing this tumbling noise of some of my camera gear rolling along the roof and scattering itself across some small road in the back of Iceland. That was only on the second day of my trip, but I still managed to persevere and get some good photos. I was shooting blind. It was the viewfinder off my field camera that I lost. So I guess what I'm trying to say is don't smash your gear too far away from home. Thanks for watching and laughing at, in this case, my latest landscape photography blog here in Tasmania. Stay tuned for some more episodes and some new gear in the future.